series, I'll talk about what you can do to help buyers stick with you during the process and things that you can add in terms of value for that buyer, that process of buying a home. But it's the listing side where all the wonderful, visible, tangible evidence of your value is, right? So we'll talk about how you can do that. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I have so many stories I want to say. That's one thing about the way I teach, is it's different every time, which is good for me and probably good for anybody that I have some people that have gone through these series like a few times or so. But it's my downfall too, is I get sidetracked all the time. I love to tell stories and things. So if I get too off track, just let me know. I try my best to keep things done in time. So as I mentioned before, we've got all these discount services. People are concerned about money, but when I say concerned about money, it's a concern about money also on the value proposition of that, of the quality of that, value. We pay extra for things all the time, don't we? For things that we feel like we're getting more value from. One good analogy is you think of buying a car. I mean, you can literally buy a $1,500 really old car, and you could spend $300,000 on some fancy sports car. Guess what all of them have? 4 wheels, a transmission, an engine, and they go from point A to point B. Just if you think about just the fundamental need for a car and what it does, why would you spend $300,000 or $200,000 or $150,000 or something like that? Because what you feel like you're getting for the money brings an extra to the expectation of what a car should actually do, right? If you're just trying to get a car to get from point A to point B, why wouldn't we all? I mean, no one ever spent over $5,000-10,000, right? But if you want something that brings, like my wife, for example, whenever we drive in the wintertime, we have to take her car because she has heated seats and mine does not. Anybody feel that way? So there's the extra thing. But these things are something that we understand. We sit in a car, we drive it, we can tell the way it drives. It gets us to point A to point B, but a lot faster in some cars, or a lot smoother, or heated seats, which I have to admit they are kind of nice. Those are the things that we're willing to pay extra for, but we have to understand it. We have to touch it, sense it, believe that we're getting that. I can't tell you this, and you know this, but it's a hard truth to accept. Nobody gets excited about broker fees and commissions, right? They just don't. They don't look at that. How many of you have other things, like whether it's your phone bill or something else, and you see all these charges that you're like, what the hell? Why am I getting charged for this stuff? I don't want to have to pay for all this stuff. You don't want to be in a position as a career, whether you're making good money or not, and wanting to go to bed and sleep well at night, that people think you make too much money and you don't do what, is needed to give them what they feel like they're paying for. Does that make sense? Just so that you understand it from their point of view, what they see you do and what you actually do to help them in the process of buying or selling property is actually not as valuable as the price that we're paying for. They're paying for it, because most agents spend about 70 to 75% of their time trying to get business. All the things that you don't get paid for, and you have to consider the fact that when I close that one deal, it's got to cover all the time that I'm working to try to get my business going and try to pay my bills and do what I do. So that's how you see it. You see it as all the hours, and in some cases, a lot of agents could add up all those hours like, heck, I could go work over at McDonald's and make more money. I'm not saying hopefully that's not the case, but you know what I'm saying, because you're working a lot of hours is what I'm saying. So, but from their perspective, they're thinking, how much time are you spending with me? How much time do you give me to help me feel like that $30,000 you got from this transaction, especially on that listing side, felt like I paid for that value, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you can help your sellers not only see it and feel it and experience it and get what they want from that, you'll get more business, not just from them, but from the people that they know. And that's the best way to advertise. You'll find that your listing advertisements, which we'll talk about as we go through this, the only advertisements you ever need to do. Wouldn't it be nice? No more self-promoting videos and pictures, and none of that is needed. You showcase your beautiful homes that you have for sale, that you help people get up there for sale, and then those that buy it get excited about those properties is the only advertising you'll ever need to do to build and grow your business. I've got agents that are literally in their 20s doing 5 to 6 closings a month, and most of them are on the listing side of that. And if they want to do more on the buying side, I have one agent in his 20s who did I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, he did 13 closings in 1 month. That's a lot of closings. So he had to hire 2 assistants to help him to do that, right? Because it's so much work. But the demand for this is actually quite high. The demand for high value services in real estate is higher than you may think. But when we don't express that and show it, and we do what we do to get the job, spend all this time to get the deal, and then try to get through it as quickly as possible, just like they're trying to do, and move on to the next one, people are not quite experiencing that value of service that we're trying to offer. Okay? So, I like to put this up there. I mean, how many of our clients watch HGTV? Yeah, just about all of them, right? It's funny, I went to Paris with my family 5 years ago or so, and I actually had someone in Paris ask me if I knew Chip and Joanna Gaines or if I had met them. Like it's a small country and we just run into each other. But yeah, they're watching all over the world. They're watching HGTV, and it excites people. I think that because of Zillow and HGTV and Truly and all those, we've actually got people more interested in thinking more about moving and buying and investing and all this kind of stuff. They get excited about that, flipping and even improving their own property. So it's not a bad thing that it's happening. But you'll find that the agents that know how to bring a value beyond the transaction are the ones that are succeeding. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out there and get a spouse or twin brother that renovates homes, but there are things that every home needs in order to get ready to sell. And we're going to talk about that next week. Next week's class is the staging and flipping class. There are 4 things that every house needs in order to be put up on the market. I'm not talking about renovation stuff. I'm talking about basic stuff. We're talking about curb appeal, odor, declutter, and stage. All homes need that, or people are walking away from good money. And it's funny, we get into these situations with our clients, and we're going to talk about this as we go through this listing presentation, that they're so anxious to get this house sold, and they're kind of halfway out the door already because they didn't talk to you 2 months ago, and they're scrambling to get something done, that they don't want to do anything to their home. How many homes have you been to where I can't believe this place smells, and it's cluttered, and it's like people are halfway moved in and out of the place, and it's like a disaster zone, and they have it up on the market for sale, pictures taken from a phone, and it's worth $600,000. It really baffles me that we would do that to, and then clients get upset that we're not getting them maximum dollar for their home, right? Anyway, we'll talk about that as we go through it, okay? So what today's class is a listing presentation, which you're going to hear from me about these offerings, these services that you're going to offer, that you're going to think, okay, so how do I deliver on that? That's what the next few classes are going to be about. The purpose of Captivate is to really put together a not just a quality of service or these great ideas, but to put together a sequence of, we call them SOPs. You've heard of SOP in business before? What does an SOP stand for? Standard operating procedure. You have a standard that you follow every single time with every time you provide your offering. It's standard. It's consistent. And it's visible to them. It helps companies grow. Companies will bring me in and spend a great deal of money helping them understand how to create these SOPs in a way to control and manage the consistency of their brand and the consistency of their offering, even on the operational side, so that they don't just say they do something, they actually deliver on it, right? And agents need that just as much as anybody else. So let's go through this listing presentation. How should a listing presentation start? Let's go back a little bit to the point where you get that phone call from someone that says, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house and I'd love to talk to you about what you can do. However you get that lead, SOI, whatever that is, you got someone that wants you to meet with them. Do you meet at their house? Everybody does that, right? Why do you meet at their house? I'm going to sell your home. I need to be here at your house. It does surprise me sometimes. Agents say, yeah, come on in. I got a CMA, and we'll sell your house. We'll talk about the CMA a little bit because it's not all that you think it is, but it is a good baseline, but not everything. So the first step in a good listing presentation is your ability to understand what they want and help them understand what you can offer, right? But it has to start with listening and learning before it starts with pitching and selling. One of the biggest issues that I've seen with real estate agents is they go to a listing presentation like they're going for a job interview. How many of you feel like that's what you're doing? And so when you're at a job interview, what are you trying to do the whole time you're sitting with someone and trying to sell yourself? you're trying to sell yourself. I told you what that ends up happening. And when you go to a listing presentation and the whole thing is about you and how great you are and how many homes you have on the market and how many years of experience you have, guess what that does for most sellers? It bores them. It doesn't matter to them so much. And sometimes it does because they've learned that that's what they should do. Sometimes you even get people that'll ask you, how many listings do you have? And how long have you been selling property? Have you sold any properties in this neighborhood? Like, any of that should really matter, right? What matters is what you do to help them get what they want. And having experience does not necessarily mean that that's going to get them. As a matter of fact, most of the agents, or I shouldn't say, a lot of the agents that I work with are agents that have done very few listings and all of a sudden are doing tons of listings and getting listing agreements and beating out veteran agents because of what they offer, not because of who they are. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the first thing is that you have to represent a $20,000 listing. That's what we call that. By the way, I don't know if you knew this or if you remember this, but the title of this class is the $20,000 listing presentation. I want you to have it in your mind that I'm presenting something that's worth $20,000. That might not even be everything that they pay. They might pay more than that, maybe a lot more, depending on the value of that house. Right? So you're going to go into there thinking, I've got to demonstrate my value, and I'm expecting this person to pay me $20,000 or $30,000 for what I'm doing. The reason I want you to remember that is because you can't put together all the other things that you do, right, to earn a living and decide that it's up to that seller's, it's their responsibility to cover your costs. Right? All the gas and all the time you traveled and all the leads you purchased and all those things, it's not their responsibility to pay for that. Right? They want to pay for what they're going to get from it. And a seller wants two things from the sale of a property. What are those two things? The most money they can make and the fastest sell. And that's the saddest thing, is the fastest sell, as I said before. We're going to change that. We call it just in time, but we'll talk about how you present that. So you're going to first present yourself as someone that's worth $20,000. So you do not show up in your workout clothes. You do not show up in your golf attire. You do not show up in, clothes that don't represent a $20,000 offer. You go into a $600 an hour law firm. Do you expect the law firm to have a nice building and people that are dressed in nice suits and everything? You do, right? High value. When what we see tells us in a first impression, just like when we look at homes, and we'll talk about that too, but we want to see that value as they come. I love seeing this gentleman right here with this. He came last week with a suit and tie. He comes this week with a suit and tie. He will demand respect the moment he walks into a room, and people will listen. And some of you are dressed really nice, so make sure that you're dressed. You don't have to wear a tie in order to look great. So, but sorry to single you out if that's all right.
It's all right. I was going to go change into my gym clothes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They say dress for success. But when you show up to their house, you want to represent that. I've even told some of the agents that I work with, because we work with these groups you have these young agents that are doing the lead management and stuff. I'm like, if you've got an old beat up car, go rent a car the day you go and show up at that house, right? Because even the car you drive, and not that this is a manipulation, you're not trying to trick people, but you do want to impress on them that I take what I do very seriously at a very high level of this quality of service that I offer. And it represents everything about me, everything you see. So you should come dressed nicely to your listing presentations, okay? So you go to the house and you knock on the door. Now wait, let's do this before we go. After they call you and they tell you about the house, what are you going to do at your office before the listing presentation?
Research.
Okay, what do you research?
Recent sales.
So that's a CMA, right? So we'll just call that a CMA. So everything that goes along with that. So anything else you research?
How many active listings are already in their neighborhood?
Yeah, that's. Let's just call that CMA if that's all right. Yeah, we'll just call that CMA. But that's true. That's all a part of that. Anything else?
Work done on the house?
That you're going to find out. What can you do before you go? I guess you could if you look up city. Yeah, you call a title or you call the city, but
when they bought it, what they bought it for.
Yeah, you're going to find that out. I guess what I'm trying to get to, you can tell I'm trying to get to something.
You want to see who the client is.
Yeah, you're going to talk with them, and that's what we're going to talk about during this tour. But I want you to do some research on the community. I want you to understand that if that's not your community that you work in, you don't know it well, what kind of things should you know about that community? The schools, yeah, some of the things like that, and things that are immediate to the community too. If they got a golf course close by, things that that draw people to want to live in that area. If you don't know that neighborhood and community well, get to know what those things are. So schools are usually a good part of that. Things like parks that they have, things that are going to attract people that people will be considering, and we'll talk about this in another class, when they buy. People don't just buy homes. What else do they buy? The neighborhoods, the community, right? So that's going to be part of how you sell this, and we'll kind of go through that. So you do that research, you do the CMA, but you're not going to give it to them. Believe it or not, you will not give them a price or a CMA when you do your listing presentation. You have basically two primary goals in your listing presentation. Number one is to listen and to learn, to understand, right? And that builds trust with them and helps you to be able to offer what you're going to do based on what they need and want, right? So that's one part of it. The other is you're going to get them to believe in your ability to give them what they want so that they will do what? Sign an agreement. That's your goal, right? Your goal isn't to try to do I think it's kind of funny, we do this little dance with people, and it's basically called the home value guessing game. Right? We go into the house, we hope that we can throw out a number that they kind of feel all right with, they've had other people talk about, and our CMA somehow coincides with something like that, and basically we just play and we do this dance. I'm going to give you my resume first and tell you how great I am, and then we're going to play this game where we try to figure out what each other feels comfortable with in terms of the listing price. And that's not how your listing presentation should be. And I'll explain as we go through this how you get to that true value of their home. Actually, I'll explain it really quickly, but before we get to the door, you've done your research, right? You don't give them anything at the door. You're going to knock on the door, and how many of you do a tour of the home before you sit down with them? Yeah. Everybody, you're going to want to do a tour. How much do you spend doing your tour? How much time? What, 15, 20 minutes? Okay. So, knock on the door. This is what I say. So I'm going to jump back and forth between how I would present it to the seller, and also what I'm helping you to kind of see from my point of view, at least. Not saying that I know any better than you do, but I'll explain what I think is needed to understand how this happens. So I kind of jump back and forth between as if I'm talking to a seller or when I'm talking to you. Does that hopefully make sense? And if you're not sure, when I'm jumping back and forth, so do you say that to the seller? You can ask me. Okay. So I knock on the door, and the first thing I'll say is, hey, before I come in and take off my shoes, I like to say that part of it, before I take off my shoes and sit down, because what are they expecting, by the way? They're expecting to come in and sit down. Really, that's what they think. But before I come and sit down, I want to do a tour of your home so I can understand its true value. Now, everything in the Captivate program and everything that I try to teach as part of a high service level offering has a name to it. Like a nice restaurant has a menu, right, of the dishes that they offer. A dealership has make and models of their cars. Everything has a name. So I pause and I emphasize. You notice when I do that. What I want to do is I want to help you find the true value of your property. And they're going to kind of give me that inquisitive look, so then I explain what I mean to them. And also I'm going to tell you, and I apologize for doing this, I throw agents under the bus all the time, right? That's my whole goal, right, is to showcase that I can provide what most agents don't. That's what high value of service offers. And there's nothing wrong with that. Someone wants to do it cheaper, great. Someone wants to do this kind of offering, great. But I'm going to show you what I do that's better than anybody else you're going to talk to. So I do this. I throw them under the bus. And this is what I say. Most agents will come to you with what they call a CMA, or a competitive market analysis. And that looks at properties that are currently for sale or have recently sold here in this area, and they determine your home's value based on that. For me, that's just a baseline. I did run a CMA, but for me to find the true value of your property, I also look at its current condition and its potential to maximize the value of your property so you can make the most money for it. Now, one thing you'll notice as I do my presentation is I will mention those two things often. Like every time I do a new slide, every time I explain what I do, those are the two things that they want. So I have to explain to them how I'm getting them there with all the things that I offer. That's the value of service, okay? Because they're going to be thinking that what? If I don't pay you so much money, then I'm going to make more money. But that's not what I sell. I don't sell low price. I'm not Walmart in terms of this listing service offering. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What I am is I provide a high level of service, and it's definitely worth the money, right, that you're going to pay for it. And it is. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe it, because the last thing I want to do is have a career where I do things that are a manipulation or not real, right? I fully believe it because I've seen it and I've experienced it. So then I'm going to tour the house with them. So I want them to come with me as I tour the house, right? This is the process that I go through as I do that. And I tell them, I love for you to come with me as I go through this, because I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to ask them 9 questions, very important questions. Now, you may ask it differently. I have my 9. I have it memorized, but if you don't have it memorized, you should write it down. I even recommend agents that I coach. And I do the Dale Carnegie way of doing this, because he's an old much older than I am, right? Obviously. But have you read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People? Right? He would have a notepad, a little notebook in there. I'm fat-fingered and I can't type as fast with my phone, so I. Not only can you write your questions down, but you can write what they say. You know what happens when you write down what people say when you ask them those questions? What that says to them? You're listening. So this is all about listening and exploring. You're not selling. And that's what I want. Well, actually, I'll put it in this context. I want you to go to someone's house as a listing presentation and not even think for a second that you don't already have the job. Because if you go in there with the idea that you already have the job, then guess what you're not going to do? Sell yourself. Right? You don't need to sell yourself, you already have the job. And as soon as you stop selling yourself, guess what happens? You become more likable and people will listen to you. So it's funny how it gives the exact effect that you want, but you have to tell yourself, I already have the job. I'm assuming that I already have it. And I go in with that kind of boldness of idea that I have that. But your boldness is not going to sound, if you start to get bold, with them, it's going to sound more arrogant and more like a jerk if they don't trust you. So you're trying to build trust, and trust happens first at the level of listening and learning, not at the level of pitching and selling, right? Or trying to tell them what you're going to do. So this is what I say when I do that tour with them. I said, I'm going to want to walk around the outside of the house first. That's why I'm keeping my shoes on, and take some pictures. And as I take pictures, I just want you to know that these are not going to go up on the listing. I hire a professional to do that. But this is going to help me and my team understand the true value of your home. And a lot of times when something's new, I'll mention it 2 or 3 times. Even when I teach, right? You'll hear me say things 2 or 3 times. Why do I do that?
Because we have to listen.
Yeah. So it's got to stick. It's got to stay there. And you want them to realize, oh, this is a real thing. When you say something 2 or 3 times, it starts to stick, right? It starts to feel like, okay, this is something real that this person's offering to me. It's interesting how a lot of agents don't have a lot more to offer than just, I put your house on the MLS. They just say it in 5 different ways, right? Here's my CMA, here's what your house is worth, I'll put it up in the MLS, I'll put a sign in the yard, I'll take pictures. It's like all status quo stuff. So you're trying to teach them to understand that here's what I do that's unique and different, but helps you to meet your goal. So I tell them I'm going to take some pictures, and I do that, and then I'm going to ask these questions. There are these 9 kind of questions that I ask. You can ask them in your own way, of course, but it's really important that you ask these questions, and there's a reason for this beyond just the answers that they give you. By listening and getting them to open up, you will actually find that they will start to trust you. You'll know that someone trusts you when they do what? When you ask questions. They talk.
Yeah.
They talk, yeah. The more they talk, the more you know that they trust you. Now, there's some people that are more talkative than others, but you'll find that when people start to open up to you, that's when that trust barrier starts to go down. And in most cases, you will actually win them over during this period of time than you will when you do your presentation itself. The presentation closes the deal. This is what wins their trust. And when you win their trust, they will then be confident and well, they'll want to share with you how you can help them. And when people share with you how you can help them, then you've already got the job, right? Makes sense? So this is the psychology of this. I'm going to ask them some tough questions. It gets tougher as it goes along, and we'll talk about these questions in just a second. But if you're sitting down at a table and you ask tough questions to someone you don't know too well, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And then they lie or they don't tell you, what is really going on, right? So here's how this works. As I did some research on the community, I start there and I talk about, I love, this area is going to be, your home is in such a great area because of this park and the schools and whatever it is that you found. I don't exaggerate. I don't, make things up and make it so that it's not genuine. But what I'm doing during this process is I'm doing a combination of 3 things. I'm complimenting their property and only using compliments, always positive. No suggestions on what they should do, nothing like that. I give them compliments about their property, starting with the outside and the curb appeal. And again, if there's something that's obvious that needs to be done, they've got some old beat up car in the yard, I don't know, whatever it may be, I will take a picture of it. Guess what happens when I just take a picture of it? They see me take a picture of it. They know, like, oh yeah, that's probably not a good thing, but I don't have to say anything, right? But what I will do is I will say things that are positive about that area and about that home as I take pictures. Keeping things positive also helps them to feel like this person's trying to understand and is seeing the good in what I'm trying to do, Does that make sense? That helps to build trust. Then I ask questions, and I ask the question. I might look at them in the eye as I ask the question, but then I go and take pictures and make compliments so they can ponder and think about what I asked. And then I try to do follow-up questions as well, because again, I want them to share as much as they will with me, and I'm hoping that they share a lot. And I do need some of these answers in order to be good at what I'm going to be able to tell them during the presentation. If you go straight into your presentation, or you have a memorized presentation or a set presentation, and you don't incorporate what you learn from them, you are not going to win them over, right? Because it's different for every situation, okay? So here are the questions I ask. How long have you lived here, right? Good question, right? Why did you decide to move? Where are you moving to, and when do you hope to move? One of the things that you should be doing, and we'll talk about this as you close this up, is you really should have two agreements with you, right? That they're going to sign. What are those two agreements? Yeah, because they're going to buy two in a lot of cases. So you'll have both of those there with you, and knowing what they're doing. What are they trying to do? This is also about timing, and it's also going to be about how much you can help them in terms of increasing that gain with any recommendations you're going to give to get their house ready to sell. So you're trying to learn all those things. So these important questions to ask them. What do you like about your home? I love this question before I ask the next one, because this one sets them up to say, oh yeah, I like this. And as you're walking around and you're looking at different areas, it might be, have to do with that particular room or space that you're in, or the yard or whatever, and that's fine. But I like that. Usually gets them to open up a lot. And people love to talk about how great their house is. Have you ever noticed that? Especially if they want to sell it. They want to tell you about all the great things, because that's going to help them sell it for more money. Let them do it. Let them talk. And then as they share those things with you, if you write them down in your notepad, again, that just tells them even more, wow, this agent is really paying attention to me and my home and my needs, not trying to sell him or herself to me. And that will set you apart already from most agents that go out and do a listing presentation. How many of you already do stuff like this already? Good. Yeah. How many of you thought about it in a very intentional way to do it like this? And this is what I hope, that you find a little bit of tidbits, because it's always those extra little good things that you do that stand out, right? Just like with the car, everything is about the same with almost every car, but that double-stitched leather, Italian leather, is, with the heated seats. That's why I want to pay all this extra money for this car, or one of the reasons. So make sure that they understand that little bit of extra that you're offering, and really help them to know that that's why you do what you do, right? That's your brand. Then there's this tough question: is there anything that might need to be repaired? Don't you love that question? Right? Why is that such a tough question? Because I promise you, if they've lived in that house for more than a few years, and even if it's just a few years, there are things in that house that probably aren't working like they should. And guess what? They are doing their best not to tell you what those things are. Why do they not want to tell you?
They don't want to spend the money.
They don't want to spend the money or wait for the time to get those things fixed. It's about time. It always comes down. You can always whittle it down. The lowest common denominator. It's about time and money. And so anything that goes against that scares them, right? And so you want to be careful when you make any sort of recommendations. But this is what I tell them at this time. And sometimes when I talk to them, we're having a conversation, and I kind of explain why I asked that kind of question, right? So the important thing about this, just so that you know, is that if there's anything in that home that the inspector is going to find, what does that end up costing or causing to that client? More time, more money, and usually much more. You could lose a deal, and that if you lose a deal and you have to start all over again, how much time does that lose, right? We had, I'm sure you all have stories if you've been in the industry for a while. We had one property that it was only like a 12-year-old property, but it had a little bit of a leak in where the A-frame comes together on the house, right? And then inside they had a little bit of leak, right? And they painted over that leak. And luckily they told us about it, right? Because they weren't going to tell us. Why would you say anything? It's just a little tiny leak. It's not a big deal. It's not raining right now, so they don't want to say anything. So we got them, to say, hey, yeah, we've had that. We don't know what it is or anything. We had a roofer go up there, and what happened is, it's not the roof. It's only a 12-year-old house, right? Unless someone did a really bad job on the roof. But because of the way the A-frame came together and the way the water ran, it basically took the flashing or the sealant or whatever, and it just wore it down over that period of time, and it started to come through. What it needed was diverters. Have you ever heard of diverters before? Basically what it does is it takes water that comes down in one area so it doesn't ruin that area, and it just diverts it out. Just a simple little thing. Guess how much it cost us to put diverters in? $300 is what it cost. We did quite a few. They also had to do new flashing. They basically fixed the whole thing up. However, if that would have come out in the inspection, which it would have, they took pictures and how much it was worn right there. What would the buyer want? A brand new roof. Like, period, I want a brand new roof. I want the equivalent of that. Because in their mind, they're thinking, well, if that's wrong there, then there's probably all these other issues, and I want a new roof. Or they back out altogether, all sorts of weird things. You've seen them happen. So you want to mitigate those things before that they do. So that's a tough question to ask them. Yeah, when it gets 90 degrees out, my AC decides it doesn't want to go cold anymore, whatever that may be. So you want them to share that with you. And sometimes I'll tell them a story like that, and I'll say, the reason I asked you that question is because my job is to get as many people as I can interested in your property, and then you're kind of in the driver's seat if you've got multiple offers to choose from. But when we accept an offer, then they kind of get into the driver's seat. And I don't know if you know this. I'm an investor, and I love to buy properties. And my strategy for buying properties is if someone has a nice property, I'm not going to wheel and deal with them as an investor, especially with the market the way that it was. I'll offer them full price. I'll even offer them a little bit over full price. Right? Because what is my goal to do as a buyer and as an investor? Well, not just get the property, is get under contract. And then when I'm under contract, I have an inspection come in. That's when I negotiate most of my deals, is after the inspector goes in. And that's right. I've talked down $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 after I've actually got under contract, because for the seller, even though they're not thrilled about it, but their agent wasn't helping them or wasn't prepared enough, is that if it's 2.5 weeks into this deal and the inspection report finally comes back and you see all these things that are going on with it, if they deny what I'm asking for, I'm an investor, I'll just go find another property. What does the seller have to do? Start all over from scratch again. Even if they have backup offers, I'm telling you, backup offers are not what you think they are. They're just not what they should be. So I guess what I'm trying to say is know that you're helping your client with this information that you're gathering to get what they want. And what do they want? They want a house that sells quickly and for top dollar. If there's inspection issues, what's going to happen? It doesn't sell quickly and it doesn't sell for top dollar. Okay, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go through some of the classes. Like next week's class is staging and flipping. I will teach you how to get homes ready to sell. But today, it's just about the presentation. What do you think others will like about your home? What do you like about this area and community? That opens them back up again after that hard conversation. Notice the hard one is right here, and then there's some easier questions that get them to open up again and get excited about, talking about things after I depress them about, well, we might have to take a look at that HVAC system and have someone come in there and make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, right? But it's better to do it now than it is to do it later, right? And when they understand that and believe it, then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad that I'm talking to someone that really knows what they're talking about. Okay? And then this last one is the most important question of all. What are you hoping for in terms of timing and net gain? I want them to tell me that. I am not trying to be I've had agents tell me this before. Well, I want to nip in the bud before they tell me a number, what the number really should be, because they are smarter than the owner of that property. I'm sorry, folks. As much as you are involved in the industry and you know about a lot of things, and even more so a lot of times than your clients, don't pretend that you know more about the value of their home than they do. They've lived in that home. And they'll tell you that. My neighbor sold their home for this much, and whatever that excuse is. You want to be in a position to say, you know what? I bet your house is worth that much. Maybe we can even get more. So I'm going to do, and this is the other emphasis, I'm going to give you a listing report that tells you what you can do to maximize the amount of money for your home and sell it just in time. All right? So I do the tour first. Anybody else do a tour like this? Like this? Yeah, somewhat like this? Okay. Do you see the value of doing something like this? Okay. Does it help you put into practice maybe some of these things? I hope it does. I hope you found something out there that you could help with, or that you could use help with. So on the presentation itself, when I go and sit down, take off my shoes, go into their home and sit down with them, I want to make sure that presentation sticks. I want to make sure that everything they see and understand about what I have to offer is going to demonstrate in every way possible this high value. There are 3 elements of every good presentation. If you've studied in education or something like that, you've heard this before. There's an oral element to it, a visual element to it, and a kinesthetic element, right? Anybody, you know what kinesthetic means? Touch, right? What you touch, exactly. So you're going to have to demonstrate remember, it's a $20,000 listing service that you're demonstrate through those three elements. The way you're dressed is part of that. I couldn't find it before I came out here to fly out here, so I usually have it with me, so I'm going to do this a lot. But I have a 14-inch iPad. Right? You can use a Surface or something else, but my listing presentation is on this. It's a slide deck that I go through. I'm old enough that I remember the days of the flip chart, cells. You guys remember those? Yeah. So this is kind of like the flip chart, but this is in a tablet format because it's digital. You're going to be showing them some very just amazing digital services that are part of your offering that they need to see. Now, I don't like using a computer to do it because then I'm like this, trying to talk to them. So I want to look at them, just like that's what flip charts were all about before. I can look at someone in the eye and I can flip through this. I want the focus to be on me, then this is supplement information. But if I'm like this or I'm, we're both facing it, then it's not as good as a presentation. That oral part of your presentation doesn't come across as well. But you need to have a digital device that you can present on. So that's one of your assignments. If you don't have one, you got to figure out how to go, whether you have to finance it or get it. You can't do a good listing presentation without having this digital device. And I notice how big. Mine's a 14.1 inch iPad. I don't know if you knew that. You could buy them that big. Don't get those little tiny ones that are like big phones, right? It's too hard to see. You're going to be showing them some cool stuff. I've even been in some homes where I felt comfortable enough to say, hey, can I project this up on your TV? I want this to be super impressive to them. The visual element of what I'm going to show them is a very important part of value. And it's not just about numbers, right? We're going to get to the numbers later. And what's kind of cool about this is that they don't even argue with you about numbers, not your commission numbers or the amount that you're going to sell their home for, because what you're going to show them is going to demonstrate a value that makes sense to them about, wow, I'm going to make as much money as I possibly could by working with this agent. Okay, so now let's go through I got to put this away. Keep grabbing that. I will talk to you about some of these kinesthetic elements: your folder, your canvas bag, 3D goggles, and with the buyer we do snacks, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Come on, going the wrong way. Okay, here we go. So it didn't show. I didn't do my. Hold on a second. Where are we? There we go. The first slide of my slide deck is what's called an infographic. So another problem with a lot of presentation and presentation materials is we use way too much text. If someone has to get out their reading glasses to understand what it is that you have to offer, then you've already lost them. Okay? Think about it. If you go into I use BMW a lot, it could be Mercedes, whatever, a nice car, dealership. You go in there, first you see all these well-dressed people, right? And you see these really nice cars and everything's set up really nice. It looks like a high-value offering to them. They also have these booklets for each one of their make and models, right? Have you seen those before? The first half of those booklets, what are they? Pictures. And they have little bubbles in those pictures, and they have like the close-up of that double-stitched Italian leather, and the heated seats and the Bose stereo system, right? Guess where almost 90% of most people spend their time when they look at those booklets? On the pictures, right? They just look at those pictures, and that tells them what they need to know, even though it's not giving them a whole lot of detailed information. Now, those that are, like you get those engine fanatics and those stereo fanatics, what do? Then they go in the back after looking at the pictures. They'll look at the pictures first, then they'll go in the back and look at some of the specs if that means something to them. For a lot of other people, it's just like, it's funny when you see like a dealership and they'll open up the hood and like, wow, that looks great. I don't even know where, like my wife, she could not tell you where one of those, my wife's a very smart lady, but when it comes to cars, she has no idea. Yeah, there's an engine, but it doesn't really mean much. But the picture, the visual, representation and presentation of that is what grabs people's attention and feels like, oh wow, this is great value. Make sense? Okay. So, what was that? And they get heated seats, where that's where the real value is. Yeah. So this infographic is the first slide in your presentation. Now later I'll tell you about the leave behinds, and you'll have something you'll leave with them to remind them of what you've taught them, right? It'll be a little bit different, but it'll be kind of in the same format. So this infographic tells them very quickly what I do. And so this is when I start the presentation, I say there's 5 things that I do to help you get the most money for your home and to help you sell your house just in time. And then this is where I actually tell them about what just in time means. This is when I explain to them, my goal is to make sure that this transition, and then I tie it into what they told me. What are they trying to do? They want to move during this time. Maybe they're still looking for a home. If that's the case, which happens a lot of times, or they haven't started looking, they're just thinking about selling their house first, then I'm going to help position that so I can help them transition that just right. So it might take 2 months, it might take a month, 3 weeks, whatever that may do, or whatever that may take. But I want to make sure that I'm incorporating what they told me into that, right? So there's 5 things I do. We're going to talk about, I'm going to show you about verified buyers, the grand open house, staging, video marketing, and virtual tours. And then I emphasize again, all of this I do to make sure that you're getting the most money for your home and selling it. And then instead of just in time, I might say selling it in that 3-week period or whatever that may be, okay? So then I go into the first slide. I don't go into too much detail in the infographic. I just use that to demonstrate that I'm going to be talking about those 5 things. Guess what happens after the presentation and they want to go back and reflect on what I do? Guess what they look at? That infographic. Yeah, and they remember everything just from that. Now there might be a few things in there that they'll want to look at with more detail, and your leave behinds will offer that. And some of you I see have the book. You've even printed it out. I feel so bad that you had to print it out because you're going to get the printed book. And we did run in, I don't know if I mentioned this before, the program that I used to write it, InDesign, and there's an editor involved too, it crashed and we lost it all, and we had to go back and piece it all together, and that's why it was a little bit delayed. But I also found, as I was reading through it even a little bit last night, some of the later chapters weren't always completely updated yet, so please forgive if you run into grammatical errors or typos or whatever. Wait till you get the real book and it'll be better, but forgive those. But anyway, I feel bad you had to print that out. But if you didn't get the copy of the book, like I see you're taking pictures back there, all of this is in your book. And there's links in there, QR codes, where you can get the slides, you can get all the other information that you want. And if you have any issues with any of that or need help with it, your Intercap loan officers, even myself, are going to be more than happy to help you execute on this, okay? So the first slide in the presentation, or the second I should say, after the infographic, is verified buyers. This is one of the most undersold, and I think in a lot of ways it's one of the most important things that you do as a transactional agent, meaning you're helping with the transaction. It's very important that they don't quite understand that you can offer this because we don't explain it, which is unfortunate. So we give it a name, verified buyers. And so what I tell them is my job and what I'm going to do is to get as many people interested in your property as possible through my marketing and advertising, which I'll show you in just a second. But what that means is we're going to hopefully get lots of people that want to buy your home. Hopefully we get multiple offers. And I say that. I mean, if I believe it and I do what I can and you see that this has worked for you, then you can start to believe that happens. It's been a long time since I haven't had at least 4 or 5 offers on a property. Even my own property. I just sold a property just 3 weeks ago and had 5 offers on it. Even right now in today's market, guess what's still selling? Homes that look good. Homes that smell good. Homes that are priced right. They're still selling just fine, right? The ones that are sitting on the market are what? The overpriced, stinky, dirty, messy homes are just, and they're like, why won't my $900,000? We had one guy that's selling a $930,000 house, and the agent was telling me, and he's complaining, but he doesn't want to do anything. He has like a game table sitting where the dining table is supposed to be. He's got furniture, some in there, some out of there. He had to convince him just to hire a cleaner to go in there. And your house is worth $930,000. You're dealing with almost $1 million. And you can't get your house ready to sell, and it happens all the time, right? It's pretty crazy. So verified buyers. What I tell them then is like I'm going to get all these people hopefully interested in buying your property. But once we get offers that come in, we got to select an offer, right? And I want to help you make sure that we pick the right offer so it maximizes the money that you make and it sells just in time, right? And then you can specify what that is. Are all offers the same, right? In terms of the number, is that all that matters, the number they offer? It's not. And so you're helping them understand that. So guess what I give them a copy of? And they're going to get this in their folder. I actually give them a copy of the real estate purchase contract, a blank copy of it. And I've highlighted on that, and it goes in their folder, all the things that the buyer uses to dictate what? 2 things. time and money. So anywhere that they can put in there a timing, consideration or a money consideration, a cost, a concession, anything like that, I highlight all that. Let alone all the addendums that could go along with something like that, right? But the nice thing about that is it lets them see in front of them what this purchase contract looks like. I have one that actually has several addendums that he brings with him now that he does it, and highlights those two, the more common ones. And it's pretty, for most sellers, they're like, oh, I didn't realize it. How many of our sellers know what that looks like? It's intimidating in some way, right? So I want to tell them, my job is to make sure that we understand all of that. How many of you call the lender on the buyer side to confirm that they actually did the due diligence needed to make sure they can buy a house before you accept the offer, right? You let your client know that as you do your presentation. I confirm the funds, and I confirm that they have verified, is what we call it. We verify their everything that needs to get done for that, to make sure that they can buy that property. Who's the best person that should be calling that lender? Anyone know in your strategic team? If you have a strategic team, have you read about that? Who should be calling the other lender? Your lender, right? Because they will ask the right questions. If you get a lender that is not just an affiliate that you send deals to every now and then, here's 3 cards, you've got to create a strategic partner relationship with the people that are going to help you get your people through the transaction and through the whole life cycle better than anybody else. And if you're not partnering up in a strategic way, and we'll talk about all these partners that you need to have, your lender's an important one. And one of the responsibilities they'll have, every time you have a new listing, have them call that lender, because they'll ask the right questions. Because if you call the lender and you don't ask the right questions, what is the lender going to say about that person's ability to buy? Well, of course, yeah, they're all ready. Oh, yeah, I did everything. Yeah, they're ready to go. And all they did was pull credit, and that's it, right? Because of this program, so when I wrote this program, I incorporated title, lending, and the real estate services into one offering because they all have to work very closely together. And then, of course, there's others that get involved through other niche buyer types, right? But with Intercap Lending, and you should work with your lender for this, they provide what's called a $1,000 loan approval guarantee. I don't know if you knew that. If you don't, ask them about it. But what that is that they have this, it's a really cool one-sheet loan approval guarantee, and it says that on there. It's, it looks nice, but it also has check boxes for all the verification that needs to happen. They check what they verified, the W-2s, the tax returns, whatever it is that they need, and then they sign, and then that goes with the offer letter. And it says that if that buyer is not able to close on this deal, then that loan officer will pay $1,000 to the seller on top of what they might get from earnest money or the things like that. Basically, it's not just about the $1,000, it's about all those check boxes in that signature that shows that this is done. So you don't have to call. You know how many times we've had other, the listing agent say that I accepted the offer, even if it wasn't the best offer out there, because of that letter that was out there. We even had one loan officer, it's kind of funny because she was relatively new, not here in Colorado, but she was relatively new, and she, for whatever reason, hadn't quite heard about this or whatever. And she actually had an agent say, hey, I've got your offer, and we got 3 other offers on this property. I'd like to accept your offer, but I want you to send me that approval guarantee. And she calls me up. She's like, what the hell are they talking about? I don't know, what are you talking about, this $1,000 approval guarantee? And when I explained it to her, she's like, oh. And she goes, did you verify all those things? And she goes, not yet. And so she did, and then she sent it over. But I will tell you that lenders, not that they're lazy or anything like that, but we're all trying to do a job, right? Lenders are trying to do a job. And until they go under contract, a lot of times they don't do all that verification. They're like, well, I don't want to do all that work. I just take the credit, pull credit. You know what I'm talking about, right? So we do what's called a pre-qualification. And you want to make sure that it's more than just that. So take advantage of that. But you're going to explain all those things that you're going to do. And again, part of that is I show them a purchase contract in that as well. The next thing is staging and flipping, right? So I love this part of it. The next class is about that. What I'm going to impress on my sellers is that I don't want you to walk away from good money. And I start with that. I want you to make as much money on this house as you can. I don't want you to walk away from good money. What do I keep repeating over and over again in this presentation?
Money.
How much money they're going to make, and that they're going to sell it just in time, right? So it keeps reinforcing that, and it does work. I mean, I wouldn't say this to you. We wouldn't have put this program together if it wasn't real, right? This is real stuff. And so what I tell them is that there's an opportunity, right? That's why we're going to get the true value of your property. And I remind them of that. We're going to go back. I'm going to create what's called a listing report. and it's going to give you the true value of your property based on a few things that we might be able to do to help you maximize the value of your property and not walk away from easy money, right? And I try to emphasize that because this is very important that you don't get into this horrible rabbit hole of trying to give one, recommendations during your presentation of what they should do, and number two, scare them to death because they're going to have to spend a whole bunch of extra money or time renovating their home. Even if maybe it needs it to some degree, you're going to do what you can with the time that you have, but you're going to give recommendations, okay? So then I show them this picture, or this, it's part of the slide deck. You can use these until you get your own. Once you get your own, please use your own, right? But you can use these until then. And what I do is I say, kind of in general, homes that show well sell for more money, between 5 and 20% more. How many of you know that and believe that? It does happen, right? It does happen. It's about the way the houses are showcased for sale. And one of the other kind of taglines that I use is that the way we live in homes and the way they need to be showcased for sale is different. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We live in homes that have lots of stuff, lots of seating, right? There's nothing wrong. We'll talk about this next week. But the way they need to be showcased for sale is different. Now, at this point, knowing what their situation is, I will kind of talk more towards the timing and what's going on in their life. About 70% of people do what when they sell their home? Live in it, right? They're still living there in their property. So that's different of staging a house that they live in, which is what like this one example is here, for those that aren't, right? Whether it's an empty home or one that is in some way been staged from a professional stager, right? So I try not to go down, again, this isn't about convincing them that they should do these things, right? What's the purpose of my presentation? No, to get a signed agreement. That's my whole purpose of my presentation, to get a signed agreement. To convey to them what I can do to give them what they want. I know it, I believe it, and I know that whatever situation I'm in, I can help a client do that. Now, it's going to be their decision what they do, and I'm certainly, at this point, not going to start getting into recommendations. If they start asking you, oh, should we do this or that? I will put together a listing report once I'm employed, right? And I tell people that. Once I'm employed. What does employed mean? Once I got a signed agreement. You should never work without a signed agreement. It doesn't give people confidence that you are worth your money if you go and do things for free. I think it's crazy when I hear about agents that are showing homes without having an agreement, and bringing by cookies because of a pop by and doing all these things. It's like, to me, it looks desperate, right? Would you see a $600 lawyer bring by cookies to someone to say, don't forget, that I'm here, and then, by the way, I'll start investigating your issue without an agreement in place? No, you wouldn't do that. So don't do it yourself. If you don't want to be considered a transactional coordinator, don't act like one, right? Be the agent that has value in terms of the recommendations that you give, the consultation, and believe that you do. And I think that some of you might feel like, well, I don't know if I do. Here are two things that I need you to understand. One is you probably know a lot more than your clients do about what they could do. How many of you have walked into a home and immediately could tell the 5 or 6 things they should have done to get that house ready to sell? Because you've walked into so many homes and you know your communities pretty well, right? Secondly, you don't have to know everything, even if you're a new agent. If you've got strategic partners, like a lender that can call the other lender to get information about, is that person really ready to buy, your strategic team is the combination of expertise that's going to create the value that you're offering. So don't feel like you have to know it and do it all yourself, okay? Most agents are lone rangers. How many of you feel like you just work alone all the time, right? And then the small teams that you're on, it's really about how to get the transaction through. Even your broker and the training that you get a lot of times, it's about transactional stuff. It's not about necessarily the extra value that people really need and want, okay? So I show them the picture, but again, be careful. Don't get into recommendations. Don't say this is, what they should do or shouldn't do, or go down this rabbit hole of, if you finished out the basement, you might be able to make all this money, and scare the heck out of them because they're thinking about time and money, and you already learned from them, hopefully, what they're considering, and that should give you an indication of what you could do and say. Most homes, the 4 things they need, did I mention those 4? The curb appeal is number 1. We'll talk about this next week. Odor is number 2. Declutter is number 3, and stage is number 4. Every home needs that, and every home can have that done to it in a short period of time if you've got the right people involved. We'll talk about that next week. But those are the things that you're going to help them, and it's really, that's minimal, right? Then if you want to go beyond that, then you can. But I wouldn't recommend to you that you would recommend to them to do anything that you don't have 100% pretty, well, I don't know if it's ever 100%, but a pretty strong confidence or surety that you're going to help them with recommendations that they're going to gain from and not lose from, right? Because that's a tough space to be in. You don't want to build a reputation that I recommended that they redo their kitchen and they just lost $20,000, something like that. You do not want to do that. Okay. So next is the grand open house. I smile when I say that because how many of our sellers want an open house? Most all of them do. Yeah. How many of our agents like open houses? Yeah, some of them do. The ones that like them are the ones that are wolves trying to pounce on everybody coming in. That's their purpose of the open house. Why do our sellers want an open house?
They think it's going to sell the house.
They're going to get the two things they want. It's going to sell faster and for more money if I have a good open house. And it should actually. Believe it or not, that's exactly what should happen. I will teach you how to do that. And so in the presentation, of course, you're going to see how I present this, but wait till you go through the Facebook and Instagram class or the digital marketing class. And of course, we'll do staging and flipping next week. And then we'll do the grand open house. Those are the next 3 classes. You will be amazed at how many people you can get at these open houses and sell them. Most homes, I would say in at least 75 to 80% of homes should sell after the open house if you do it right. And it will. Even in a market like this, if you do it right. And I'll show you how you can do that. But now you're going to present that to them. So what I say to them is I don't do just a normal open house. I do what's called a grand open house. It's a grand opening of your house to the market. And I do hundreds of dollars of marketing and advertising to get people interested in your property, not to mention the other things that I'll show you in terms of video and 3D tour marketing to help promote your property. So then I show them that. You need to show them. That's why you need to have your tablet, and you're going through the tablet. And so they see this picture first. This is one of 5 ads that I run beyond the MLS. And here's where I throw agents under the bus again. Most agents put you on the MLS, and they just let the market take care of the sale of that property. To me, that only represents about 20 to 25% of the potential buyers that I can reach for you. Right? What did I just do when I told them that? Right? I just told any other agent you talk to is not going to be able to get you the kind of return that I'll get you, because how does a house sell for more money and more quickly? When it has more interested buyers. The more interested buyers you have, the more urgency that will happen. So, and the price too. So I show them this, and then I don't know if you can see it too well here. It's in the book if you have that. If you didn't get the book, by the way, let us know. Let your loan officer know, and we'll get you a copy of that digitally, and then we'll get you the physical copy in a couple weeks. Okay. So 7,273 people reached on this ad. 377 engagements. That means 377 people clicked on this. It's a 3D tour to walk through that property. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Right? You know what makes it even more impressive? And this is what I tell them. I use AI targeted marketing to do my advertising. Artificial intelligent marketing. And you do, and I will teach you how to do that. I don't know if you knew this, but Facebook and Instagram are AI platforms. Same thing. The reason they call the company Meta is because it's metadata, right? It's that data that is dynamic, changing data all the time. That's what meta means, right? It's changing, always changing, and it's a lot of it as well. And they make sense of that in terms of people's interests and behaviors. I don't know if you knew this, but you can actually, and I'll teach you, you can specify a 15-mile radius around your property, and then you can find all the home shoppers looking in that area from all around the world that are looking right there in that area, and you can target them. That's what makes this so impressive. I'm actually targeting for, I spend about $50 per ad, and there's 5 ads. I'm targeting those people that are home shopping in this particular area of Colorado, for example, right?
And
whatever that home is.
And
Yes.
that doesn't violate the...
There's no, yeah, as a matter of fact, fair housing is a part of that. They have fair housing built into the platform so that you don't violate red line requirements or any of that. And I'll show you how that's done. Now, there are things where you could, I'm targeting first-time home buyers because it's condo, right, compared to luxury home buyers. You can actually do that, and it's still fair, part of fair housing. So yeah, it's all built in. So come back in a few weeks, or is it, yeah, 2 more weeks from here, and we will do that class, and I'll teach you how that's done, right? Yeah, but don't worry, everything is compliant, above board, legal, everything that we're doing. Okay, and then I show them a single property website. So your house is going to have its own website, and this is super important. How many of you do a single property website for their home? Now, what's the purpose of a single property website? In a lead funnel or a sales funnel, anyone know? It's a landing page, okay? So I'm going to teach you not just how to post something on Facebook or Instagram and then hit boost or something like this. This is a lot more. It's not that it's more complicated, but if you're going to be a professional marketer and a professional salesperson, you have to understand how this is done. It's called a funnel, or sometimes people will call it a journey, right? You're taking people on these steps through this funnel to get them to take the next step in order to buy a property, want to look at it more, things like that. And I'll teach you how that's done. So your ad, your post, your advertisement gets them to take the next step, which is the landing page to get more information, which takes them to the next step, which is hopefully either to call you for a showing or to request information and things like that. And I'll teach you how to put that funnel together. If you do it right, that's when you get hundreds of people coming to your open houses. That's when you get all of this engagement. And what's crazy to me is agents who are supposed to be really good at sales and marketing don't know the fundamentals about how to market using sales funnels. We call it the 2, 5, 15-second rule of advertising. I'll teach you about that. And then also what a hook and a call to action is. You have to know what these things are. And you don't hire someone to do it until you know how to do it first yourself. The reason for that is it has to be your voice. This is not just about some, automated thing that goes out. A hook and a call to action there's a very precise way that you do that, and it's very unique to you and your brand. Not that anybody else wouldn't do it similar to that, but until you learn how to do it correctly, it won't be as effective. And hiring someone else to do your social media is one of the biggest mistakes real estate agents make. They want to get lots of likes, so somehow they've related cat videos to real estate, and they get a lot of likes, but it doesn't get you new business, right? So I will show you how to do this and set it up, and then as an SOP, if you've got a procedure in place and you've got the check boxes of what need to get done, guess who gets to do all those administrative things when you start making lots of money and doing lots of deals? You hire a marketing coordinator and a transactional coordinator that will do those things. You are graduating from that, and you will be out there meeting with people, networking, creating opportunities, getting signed deals, and then you'll be able to deliver on your promises with help from other people that'll help you to do that. Okay, so the single property website, when you do your presentation, you should be able to just click on it, and you can with the present. And I'll give you this, by the way. You get the entire PowerPoint presentation, you get the slides, or not the slides, the PDF files that you'll print out, the leave behinds and everything is all done for you. You can take these as they are and just use them. If you are going to add to them or you want to change them up in terms of design or something, unless you're a professional graphic artist, you do not do it, period. Hire someone to do it for you. Fiverr, have you ever been to Fiverr before? Fiverr.com. They are now your new graphic designer until you maybe hire someone that can do that, which is fine, but make sure that all your presentation material looks like it merits a $20,000 offering, okay? So then you're going to get to this point in the slide, and you're going to show them what a single property website looks like. Whoops. Here we go. So here we go. This is what a single property website looks like. First thing you notice is how big is the picture, right? I don't know what it is about the MLS. Let's downsize the picture to 120 kilobytes and show it this big, and then you're in everything. So what's funny about when buyers are going and looking online for a home, right? What's the first thing they want to see after they've done their search of their criteria? See pictures. And they want to see video and other things that are today's technology, and I don't know why we're so far behind the times when it comes to this. So you're going to create a single property page for them, and you're going to show them this is what I'm going to do for your home. You're going to get your own website for your home, right? This serves as a landing page. What's the purpose of a landing page? It's part of that funnel, that's right. And the purpose of that is you don't want them going anywhere else but where you want them to go. That's what funnel means, is to funnel them through. So guess what is not on this page? Let me scroll down here. So it's kind of slow. Yeah. What's not on this page? Other properties, right? There are no other properties. Now, when you do this for yourself, your picture and your logo and all your compliant information will be there. Plus, it showcases you in that, that offering as well. How long does it take to create a single property website? Anyone know? About 3-4 minutes. It does not take long at all. And I'll show you how that's done. That's part of the Captivate program. If you don't have a way of doing it, we have a program called Total Expert that will do all the marketing pieces that we talk about for you in literally minutes, sometimes seconds, but it's better to do this in minutes because you can download this from the MLS, But I don't like downloading it from the MLS because the MLS downsizes all the pictures, and then I blow up my picture and it looks pixelated. So I upload the pictures individually to the single property website. But it's a very simple, non-technology, required, effort to be able to use a form field and just upload those pictures and put your single property web page together, okay? And then again in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, I will show you how all these advertisements are done, okay? So when I do my presentation, I take them to this and I tell them first, I'm going to do a property website just for your home, and I'm going to use 4K resolution pictures, so I can't see my, and then I start showing them the pictures. I want them to see the pictures. I don't know why it's so delayed. What's one of the main reasons I want them to see the pictures, besides seeing how big the pictures are, is to see a well-staged home. Because what am I trying to impress on them? That they need to get their house ready to sell, and staging it is a big and important part of that. Honestly, of all the things you can recommend for somebody, staging is the number one return on investment, right, of that property. Now, curb appeal is going to be the first thing they see. If they don't get past the curb appeal, they don't like that, then they're not even going to look inside the house. But once they get into the house, it's the biggest return on investment. If you spend $1,500 on getting your house staged, you'll probably make an extra $15,000, $20,000. What people will be willing to pay for that home because of it being staged. We had a builder his wife is a broker and he's a builder, and they're in the same building next to each other. And we did this whole series with them, and the builder, the husband, decided to come to the first class. He came to all 9 of the classes. And what was really cool after that is remember the time when they couldn't build houses fast enough? And so they were building homes, and before they would have someone come in and pick a lot and pick the floor plan and then build it for them, they stopped doing that. They're like, we lose money actually building the house for someone else. So they would build the house and then they would sell it, and they would make more money, and they wouldn't have to deal with all the picky people that were, because at least that's the way the market was. It's not that way so much anymore. You know what I'm talking about, right? So anyway, after he'd gone through the course, he's like, we would build the homes, but we didn't stage them. So he started staging this house. He came back after I met him like 2 or 3 months later. They take builders. It's about numbers with builders, right? Because they're hedging the market so far out when they're doing developments and building properties. He said we made on average, this is on average, $38,000 more per property when we staged them than before we staged them. $38,000 more per property. That is a lot of money. So when your sellers get all bent out of shape of $1,800 and you let them know, this is going to make a huge difference. But what I'm doing when I do this presentation is I'm kind of giving them an idea. This is what it means when you stage a property. Sorry, it's delayed. So I'm going through and they're seeing it. And, even the close-up on the, the 6-burner stove means a lot. Sorry, it's like that. Hopefully this stops here. Okay, good. This room right here, even, it's crazy when this is one of my properties that I sold, right? When you go into this house, and I'll show you a video about this next week so you can see the difference when it's not staged. This room looked way too small, and it didn't look like there was any space for the dining table, because you have these, I don't know why they do this, but they build these nice new homes, 3,500 square feet, and the kitchen is the size of a condo kitchen, right? This little tiny pocket kitchen, and there's little tiny space for a table, and then you have all of your living because they want the open floor plan. If you don't stage it, it makes no sense. It doesn't look like a house that you're like, wow, I'm excited to pay $600,000 for. Once it's staged, there's no question about it, right? So you're trying to impress on them that as you go through it. And as I show them these pictures, and I apologize that it's being weird on me. I should have connected a different way. Let me just go through here towards the end. So I'll show you more of this next week, and I'll connect the HDMI directly. I also show them, here we go. A lot of my pictures are drone pictures. When we showcase the community, not only will you get drone video, which I'm setting up for because that's the next thing I'm going to show them, we also use pictures because the best angle of properties is up in the air, at an angle. And we can showcase the mountains or the lake or this particular house was right next to a golf course. So, we're showcasing that as well. People don't just buy homes. What else do they buy? Everything that's around that property. Now, if it doesn't look great and you have to decide, how you're going to do that, every situation is different. I actually have 5 presentations, by the way. Guess why I have 5 presentations? I have a condo, I have a townhome, I have a mid-sized home, I have a luxury home. What's the other one for? I can't remember, but I have these so that what I'm showing them in terms of a single property website and examples of pictures and video and stuff like that coincide with kind of what they're doing. Because some people think, well, I just have a condo. I don't know, is that necessary to do something like that? Have you ever tried to showcase a condo without video? It's crazy. I mean, you're just showing the building outside. So when you have other shots that are, up in the air and you're showcasing the swimming pool that they get and all the other amenities, that's what you're trying to sell here, okay? So that's your single property website. Then I go right from the website, so I don't really go through the rest of the slides, even though you could do that if you want. But I actually show them on the single property website. I also do a virtual tour and a video tour. Okay, so then I show them the video tour of the property, as I've already impressed on them with the pictures, the drone pictures, is I do the drone video to show how great this area is. And then I usually talk about their particular area. Like when we get a drone out here, we show this or that, or the mountain view over here that you have, and the lake, and the park that you have, the golf course, whatever that may be. You want to point those things out so they really start to envision what that's going to mean when you do it for their property. And then I play this video, and it's going to be delayed. Hopefully it doesn't seem really weird. And you guys have seen these before, right? How many of you do it on every single property? Yeah, every property needs to have this done. Why do you do it on every property? Because it is now your brand. It is now who you are. It's now your high value service. When you advertise properties, guess what else you're advertising? You, right? So that's, and you're going to show them that you're doing this to a property. Now, I actually have the drone. It's not drone. They go in with the camera, but I have them go into the house as well. This costs a little bit of extra money. Wait till you hear how much it costs to get all of this done. It is a lot less than you think, but I don't want to tell you that until I show you everything. So we'll go through it if you don't know what it's like. So this is how, by the way, I bought this house for $435,000 just a year and a half ago, I think it was, maybe 2 years ago. I finished out the basement because I knew what I could get. It's on a golf course. It's only a 5-year-old house. I sold it 6 months later after I rented the upstairs during that time for more than I actually made about $400 extra per month during 6 months, and I had the contractors go in through the basement, right, to get into the downstairs. I sold the house for $675,000 6 months later, right? There's opportunity out there in so many different ways for people to invest, even you, things like that. We'll talk about all that. So here's the video. And then, after I show the video, again, as I'm showing this, I'm not just showing them the video to say, look at how cool this is. I'm talking to them as they look at it, and they get enthralled with that video, how it's going to look for them. I even want them to start, oh yeah, if we can show this, if we could do that, or what about there's this power line over here, should we stay away from that? That kind of thing. And they'll talk about it. Once you get them talking about how your marketing is going to help them sell their house, are you going to have any trouble getting that signed agreement? You're not. Well, I'll tell you a couple of stories of something that just happened when I'm done, but I want to show you the video tour next. The virtual tour next. Every house that you're going to sell is going to have a virtual tour. I don't care how old, how big, small, it does not matter. You're going to do this for their home. If you haven't, I'm sure you all have seen this. This has been around for 12 years. I've been preaching this for so long, and it's crazy how few agents do this. You cannot tell the value of a property, if you like the property or not, I should say, until you can walk through it. And if you can't help people that are all over the country, maybe even all over the world, looking to buy in Colorado, do you think there are people in Europe that would love to have a home here in Colorado? Mm-hmm. Yeah. California, we love them coming here, right, and jacking up our prices. Yeah, right. But the people are looking from all over. And even if they're not, let's say that they're in Denver, right? I just drove here from Denver. It took me an hour and a half to drive here almost, right? It's not fun. And every time I see a house, I have to drive to go see it. That's nuts, right? If you can't give them, buyers, a reason to look at your homes in a way that they would look at them if they were there, then you are missing out on the technology that is needed and wanted. I don't know about you, but if you start looking for homes and you start seeing this, and then you have a home that doesn't have it, guess what what happens to buyers? They get mad. I can't believe I can't walk through this damn house. I have to go and get in my car and go look at it. Now, I've had agents say, well, I want them to come look at it, so I don't want to put it up there. You're nuts. You don't know what you're talking about, okay? People spend 8 times more time considering homes that have a drone and video and Matterport than they do if they don't. You want them to spend more time. Plus, they send it to their friends and their family and everybody else, right? Now, when I show them this, you have to show them how it works. So this is what's important. So now I'm talking again as if I'm talking to the seller. So the video is something that's controlled. We have a videographer that go through there. This is what the buyer controls in walking through the house. It's like a video game. And it's surprising if people haven't sold or bought or sold a house in 5-6 years, they might not even know this is around, or they don't know that this can be done for their home. So then I start walking around the house. This is where it's going to be slow, sorry. I can maybe look here so you can see how I'm doing in real time. I can look up and down. I can walk around in the property, and I can control the whole thing like a video game. You've all seen that, right? Mm-hmm. So I can walk into any room. Here, let me go through here quickly. You can see how rooms flow from one room to the other. That's how you judge three-dimensional space. You can't do that with two-dimensional images. How many of you have looked at two-dimensional images and gotten frustrated, or your clients have gotten frustrated because it didn't look anything like the house, or it didn't give the house justice, right? You need to be able to show them what these properties look like, and they all should be done like this. And this is part of your brand as well. Let me jump here really quick. We'll stop in a second. There's the bathroom hallway picture. The famous bathroom hallway picture that we don't ever put up online, right? There's no need for that. So look at that nice toilet and sink, right? But when they come here and they want to have a hallway bathroom, this is where they can, sorry, it's slow, they can walk in and they can look at it as if they're there, right? Now it makes sense as how this helps to demonstrate the value of the home without putting it in the pictures. We'll talk about this, and we talked about it a little before. You don't upload your 50 pictures that your photographer sends you, and you know which order they go in and all that kind of stuff. This is all in the workbook if you want more details on that.
How are you navigating a tenant-occupied house?
Well,
With
yeah, so I hate to say this because it's going to sound really bad. If I can't do what is going to help market the property to make the top dollar, and I'm not also, because it's marketing me too, I won't take the job. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should do. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? But my belief is, because I have my own, I'm an old guy that is pretty set in my ways. I have lots of properties that I sell. Unless it's a big apartment complex and people are going to buy it to have tenants, I never sell a property until the tenants are out. Why would you not sell a property with tenants? There's no good reason to sell a property with tenants. What? They don't have the best furniture. They don't care. They're not going to be amenable. They're hard to work with. They're sometimes pissed that they have to deal with all that. You can't stage it well. It's not going to even look good if you try to stage it, because if it's not their property, they're not buying nice furniture to put in there to showcase it, right? They're not going to care if it probably doesn't smell good. So in so many ways, even for my own properties, and so I love the question, and I'm not saying you shouldn't help people that want to do that. I'm not saying that. I feel bad to even suggest that. But it is nice to be in a position at some point, wouldn't you like to be in a position where you can say no if you don't want to. There's other agents that will take this on, right? Go ahead. You can do the discount service if you want. I don't say it that way to them, but you know what I'm saying, right? So that's usually the case. I personally will not sell a house that I can't do this to, because it's a reflection of both what I do and what I love to do, as well as what's going to give the client the most for them. Is that? Sorry, who asked the question? Was that? Yeah, right here. So I apologize to make it sound that way, but
It's a good answer.
yeah. And then, as I show them the property and walk around, this is how I finished the basement downstairs. So this is the house I sold for that $675. Why is this different? And I'll share this with you next week. Is not only is it staged, but it doesn't cost very much more money to create a division here, put barn doors in, and create a theater room, and then to put a dry bar in there and a foosball table. Most people, when they finish out basements, to be cheap, they put in cheap carpet, and it's this great big room, and people don't even know what to do with that room. I guess I'll put my entertainment system over here and all the kids' toys over here, and then it doesn't look great. So the difference between a well-staged and an intentional space, right, is amazing how much. And I say this to you not because you're presenting right now to your client, but you should all be investors. All of you should be buying properties. That's your retirement plan. And as you buy and flip properties, or you buy and rent out properties, and you learn how to do it, you'll be better. You'll serve your clients better by knowing those things that you do. You want to be smart about it. I know it sounds scary sometimes, but it's really the best way to retire, honestly. All the agents that I know that are the ones that are the most successful, don't rely on their, especially if they've gotten older, longer in their career, that they rely on that deal that they have to have several times a month to pay their bills. They've now got properties that are paying passive income, and then they retire with passive income. I've got friends that have over 100 doors. I've got one friend that has over 900 doors. So yeah, it sounds crazy, but he's built this little company around it, and it works great. They collect over $1 million a month in rent. It's nuts, yeah. And it's really, believe it or not, it's not even that hard to do. It's really about organization and well, anyway, we won't get into all that kind of stuff. So as you're showing them these pictures here, then what I do is I say, so this is what I'm doing to your home. I love to show it to them like this because I want them to see that I'm doing a complete 3D rendering of your home. It is the coolest thing. Now, does this not demonstrate value, like tangible, evident value? I mean, you're going to do that to my house. Now, I don't know if you've seen this before, but then you can look at floor plans, right? You can look by floor, by all 3 floors if you want. You've seen this before, right? You also know that there's a measuring stick here. So when I have my tablet, I'm showing them this. How many people would like to know if their king-size bed's going to fit in that room? Or, what the size is of anything. You can measure literally anything. Sorry, this is going to be delayed here, but I want to measure this room. One of the most annoying disclaimers that I see on real estate, listings, here's the square footage, but buyers should verify. Like, how the hell am I going to go verify the square footage of this house? Right? So you're just putting the onus on me as a buyer to figure out if you're telling the truth or not about this, and what am I going to do? Walk around with a measuring stick or something in the house? But you put this up there, oh, I can measure. I can feel comfortable about it. And I don't know if you guys do this. I do this with my properties, is I give them Matterport floor plans. Did you know that when you get a Matterport of your property, that it's $40 more and you get a floor plan you get the whole house floor plan. And it shows just like this. I mean, it shows the doors and it looks like a professional floor plan of a property. There are a lot of people, it's funny, I have sellers that are like, can I have a copy of that? And I've even printed them, or framed them and given them to them because it was their beloved home they had for a long time. And it was like a cool memory of that property of their home. We don't have that. Now, one thing to understand about this is interior square feet, not exterior. When we measure square foot of a home, we measure the exterior, which is weird because it's interior living space. So you just let people know that, and you put that disclaimer in there. This size of this room, 12.5 by 14 and 11 inches, is the interior space of it. But that's what they care about anyway, because that's what they're working with. But if they go and they add up all the rooms, which most won't do that, they're like, wait a second, it's short 45 square feet. Well, it's interior square footage, so you can put that disclaimer. To me, that disclaimer is better than putting in the disclaimer. Here's what the state, the city record, the county records say the square footage is, but you better verify it because we can't guarantee any of this is true, right? Just nuts. Okay, and then what I do on my listing presentation is after I show them that and I show them the video and I show them the 3D tour, I have a pair of 3D goggles with me. Okay, now I don't know if you know this, but I should bring this back up. On your Matterport, now let me refresh this. Well, when it comes up, it's going to take a second. There's a little icon. Oops, come on. There it is. See that little icon that shows a little pair of goggles? You click on that when you're on your phone. Actually, it used to work on your phone. It's not working right now. They'll get that fixed, I'm sure. But it'll pop up here in a second. You used to be able to get you could buy a pair of $20 goggles, right? That are basically they're just cases, and then it splits the screen or the image into 2 screens on your phone, and then you put your phone inside. Have you ever done that before? Put your phone in there and you can see 3D. We used to do that all the time, but Matterport is having a disagreement with Google. It's called the Google Cardboard or whatever. But even before that happened, I bought a pair of Oculus. They're now called MetaQuest. Have you heard of those? They're about $300 or $400. So they are an investment. I will tell you what, this is the cherry on the sundae. This is when you just created this incredible parfait sundae or whatever, and then you just put that cherry on top is when you give them a pair of goggles and say, take a look at this home. And you can look at their, the homes that you like, the home you're showing in Matterport, because you have the Matterport app that's in there, and then you can click on that little button when you're looking at that property and it'll show that property. How many of you have looked at a property in a pair of goggles? Is that crazy? You are all real estate agents dealing with real estate, and our technology like this has been around for a decade, and you have not looked at a pair of, or you haven't looked at a house through a pair of these goggles. It is the most incredible thing. It's so fun to watch them put it on because it is literally, they're like, whoa, there were like all these things. And at first they'll like start walking, or something like that. They'll bung into the table and you're like, no. Because the way it is there's these little clear circles that are on the on the floor. You probably saw that when I was walking around. And then when you're looking at it, it doesn't get in until you focus on it, you'll see it. But when you're not, you don't see it. It's kind of a cool thing. But you put that little circle that's in front of you into that other circle that's there, and it transports you there. So you can walk around the home. You can walk around the property. You can literally look at, you can't touch yet. Maybe at some point it'll be that way. But you can look at the countertops and look at, the stove and the make and model of the fridge or whatever, that's in there. And it's the coolest thing. So again, what are we trying to do with this presentation? Show value that not hopefully, but really does, because we've done it hundreds of times, that result in giving them exactly what they want. This will help sell your house faster and for more money. And it does work, especially when I teach you how to do your advertising. You'll be amazed at how little the MLS does in comparison of what you can do with the MLS. I'm not saying the MLS, you need the MLS, right? Even all of the websites people go to, like Zillow, guess where all those listings come from? The MLS, right? Your listing alerts that you're sending out and all the other agents are sending out. That's a great, huge, benefit. But if that's where you stop, it's like your glass is only a quarter of the way full in terms of what you can do to get those homes sold and in front of more people that are looking for those, because the platforms that use AI technology that know interests and behaviors, which we'll talk about, of people shopping right now for homes in a particular area, is going to get your home in front of more people. And then when you use the technology of 3D tours and drone footage, they get more engaged and more interested in it. And I'll teach you with those 5 ads that, and this is the way it works with these algorithms, is that they might see the one ad that you post up there, and they kind of look at it, oh, it's nice, but if they spend even 3 seconds on it, guess what Facebook and Instagram tells that, that basically algorithm? Oh, they're interested, so I'm going to show them the other ones and the other ones. You need multiple touches sometimes to get them interested in that. So these 5 ads over these 5 days, culminating to a grand open house that builds urgency for it, is the formula for creating this offering that delivers on what you're promising, and it's tangible evidence to them of what that is. And you will get people signing your agreement and never question your commission. So just yesterday I taught a class in Sandy, Utah, and there's this agent. He's like a go-getter. He's like 22 years old. So, nothing to lose in life, right? It's just going out there. Never done even a listing presentation, let alone a listing out there. He's done buyer sides because he works on one of these teams where they spend tens of thousands of dollars a month. No, actually, I think it's more than 100,000 on this group. Where they get all these leads in. They have 7 seconds to answer that phone. They have a set process of everything they do to provide that highest value of what? Convenience to those buyers, right? And he does that, but he wants us to branch out. So he got a listing appointment from one of those buyers. So someone he didn't even know goes in and does the listing presentation. He got it. He said the most surprising thing about it for him, he's like, they didn't even ask. I put 6% on there. It wasn't even asked. They didn't even ask me how much I was charging. They just gave it. He did find out later, though, that there was another agent that he was competing. Actually, had a few agents that came in there, but the agent that they almost chose, they even told him this. The agent that I almost chose was offering less commission, in order to sell their home. But you were the one that showed us what you were going to do to help get what we wanted. And that demonstration is what sold them on it. Okay? So, any questions so far? Has this been helpful?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to get the whole listing presentation, by the way, so please take advantage of that. It's, like I said, it's the whole PowerPoint presentation slide deck and the leave behinds and everything. So I'm going to go through kind of what that looks like right now. So I told you about, the goggles that you get and, how to use that. You should find one of your strategic partners, by the way, is going to be your photographer. He's a strategic or she's a strategic partner. You're going to collaborate and meet with them so that they'll take good care of you. Don't just use a company, use a person that's going to take good care of you. And they should be able to do your Matterport, your drone, and your pictures, all 3 of them. Guess how much it costs for most homes, at least for me out there. We're going to look for a place out here for you. But out there, guess how much it costs to do a typical home? $400 or $500. That's it for the whole thing, everything. If you're already paying $200 for a photographer anyway, you're only paying a few $100s more. And not only is that going to help you sell your homes faster and for more money, How many of you have wanted to advertise yourself and look at what can I advertise myself with, right? This is the best advertising you do for yourself. The only advertising that you have to do. Okay? Yes?
Those 3D, the 3D tour, do they decide the room measurements, or do you have to give them measurements for that?
No, the camera does it. Have you ever seen? It's a camera about this big. I bought about 10 years ago when I started doing all this, or about, I can't remember if it was 10, it was about 6 years ago with my son. We couldn't find a good company that did a good job. I have a 27-year-old and a 24-year-old son that are really good with video, and they have drone and they have a license and all that kind of stuff. So they started a company. It's called 3D Home Shows. You can look it up, 3dhomeshows.com, because I know they're not here in Colorado, but you can get examples. If you want to use examples of different properties, they put them up there so that agents can use them, because we work with them to do that. But the camera is about this big. It fits on a big tripod. It does a 360 scan every 5 to 8 feet in that property, and it scans it. It has 3 cameras pointing up, 3 pointing down, and 3 pointing forward, all 4K resolution cameras. And then it scans the room, goes in a circle, then you take it to the next step, All those circles you see on the floor that you walk on, that's where they did the scans. It creates the measurements, and it's true measurements because it's taking walls that it's taking photographs of. Okay? So yes.
About that, then.
Uh-huh.
How many photographers have those cameras, or is that something?
Well, it's crazy if they don't, honestly. But I bet there's at least a few companies out here that do it, and we'll start looking for some that out here. But you should contact them. Do you do Matterport? You can look up Matterport, Colorado Springs, right, and see who
There's
does
quite
it.
a few, like
Yeah.
Bixbid will do it, but it's also depending on what you order. You'll end up, I've had some of my listings with 5 different people showing up the same day because I've ordered different services. Like one person comes with a drone, one person comes
Yeah,
with
that could happen, yeah.
3D tour, one person comes with the regular camera, but they're all part of your photography
Team.
team.
Yeah, that's good. That's
But they
fine.
don't do Matterport, they do like Zillow 3D tour, but it also does.
Yeah, I don't like the
Zillow
Zillow 3D tutor as much, but yeah.
They're kind of the same, it just already syndicates with Zillow for you.
It does. That is
Some
true.
benefits.
Zillow loves because they bought the company.
Right.
They love that part of it. And basically, it's an app on your phone, and you do it
Right.
that way. But it's just you don't have 9 4K resolution cameras, in the way that they do it. But it's better than not doing it.
Right.
Better than not doing it, right? You get a little bit of fisheye kind of look in that one, but
It looks more like this camera right
Yeah,
here.
this one right there.
oh, like this one right here,
They're
yeah.
not using a cell phone, they have a
Oh,
tripod.
they have. Oh, that's right. They do. They have that kind of that camera. But and new technologies will come along, right? There's going to be all sorts of really cool, fun stuff that they'll have. Just stay up with it. Be the kind of agent. If you're going to be if your service offering, high value service is what you're offering. Make sure that you have, you're up to date with those services that are out there. So here's your homework, right? If you haven't read chapter 1, read chapter 1. Now you should have read chapter 2, and before next week, read chapter 3 if you have the time to do it in the book. Next week's going to be about the staging and flipping, right? If you can stay ahead of what I'm teaching you, you'll have questions and you'll have more insight, I think, than if you wait until you learn about it. What you're also going to want to do, if you're going to do this, you need to have some sort of digital device that you're going to present on. And again, it should be a big one. I really don't like the computers, even though you probably all have laptops, but it's harder to present this way than it is to present this way, okay?
I've got a thing called Sidetrack. It's like you put magnets on the back of the screen. And you
Oh
can
yeah, I've
put
seen that. And you can
extra
flip the screen.
around.
Yeah, you can do that. That works just fine. As long as you can face them as the screen faces them. That's the main thing, right? Because you want to make sure that they're keying into you, and you want them to be looking at you as much as possible, because you're going to sense from them what they're understanding, what they're buying into, if they have concerns and stuff like that. So you want it to be a eye-to-eye contact as you demonstrate what you have to show them. So it's good to have that. So you can download, and I'll send you links to it. It's also in the book, where you can download the PowerPoint presentation. I like Prezi. This is Prezi. You can convert it to that if you want. If you're going to change it in any way, like I said, get a professional graphic artist to help you to do that. Make sure that it's reflective of your design, of your offering, and designed well. And it's very graphic heavy, right? It's going to be more about showing them than trying to tell them. When I see agents that have this 15-page, demonstration of what they do in a Word document, I'll tell you one thing: if it's done in Word, it's already not good enough. Okay, so it needs to be done professionally, and it needs to be something that you print out in color, and maybe even professionally print, and it doesn't have the white, border. But even if it does, that's still all right. So You're going to want to have, your 3D tour and everything. You're going to want to know who's going to do that for you. Try to get this stuff set up before. I have so many agents who are like, oh, I love this, it's a great idea, and then they kind of put things to the side, and then all of a sudden they have a presentation and they're scrambling trying to put it all together. So work on it now. If you're not so busy, I hate to say that, I know it's hard right now, get this all together. This is a perfect time, actually, to set yourself up for all the people that are going to be pulling the trigger very soon. Once the Fed, they only raised the rates 0.25% yesterday. You heard that on the short-term rate. That's not always equivalent to the mortgage long-term rate, but there has a lot of, right now at least, there's a lot of similarity to that. Powell did mention that they were going to continue to do that. Powell always does that. I don't know what it is about. We're going to do something that the market's going to be excited about, and then we're going to tell you 10 reasons why we shouldn't have done that, or that we're going to, it's not, everything's still dire, whatever. But anyway, be prepared, because there's going to come a time where interest rates are going to go down again, and then guess what's going to happen to your poor market? Inventory is still going to be low, and demand is going to go up, and we're going to be right back to where we were before, right? So get people lined up right now. Get them all excited about what you can do to get them ready, okay? Get your 3D goggles if you're going to do the 3D goggles. I love doing the 3D goggles. And then, oh shoot, come on. Keep going. I'll connect that next time. So here is the listing presentation in print form, right? So I showed it to you as a PDF or as a PowerPoint slide deck that you can download. This you get out of Total Expert. So remember I told you before about this tool that you get free. It's normally, I think, $99 a month, but talk to your Intercap loan officer. He or she will set you up with an account, and you get that free. Now, that doesn't mean you're obligated to work with them. They, of course, want to be partners with you, not just affiliates, but true partners. And so they're providing that tool, but they don't get access to any of your people or stuff or anything like that. So don't worry about it. This is a tool that you get to use independent of that. But what I recommend is that you have, I showed you that canvas bag, has your logo on it, is what I'd recommend. We call that the home shopping bag, and I'll explain that on the buyer side of things, how impactful that is, but it's also part of what you give them. You don't just give them a folder with your logo on it, because that just seems like junk email type of stuff. You put it in that bag, we found out people keep it, and it makes it seem more like it's about them. It's a home shopping bag. You still put your logo on the bag, you put your logo on your folder, you open it up, and guess what goes inside the sleeve of that folder? These sheets right here. So notice they're different than the slide deck. The slide deck had very little text because you're talking. You don't want them reading that. But here, if they want to know more, what was Mike saying about verified buyers? Okay, I can read this. Notice that it's still a very visual type of format, and it's not multiple pages and not really small text, right? It gives them, and we wrote this out and designed it, so just use it if you want to, or have it redesigned and use it, rewrite, do whatever you want, but think of it in terms of the recipient. I know when you write stuff, you think everybody wants to read it. Just like my book, I think everybody's going to love reading my book. And you're like, oh, I don't want to read this thing. Because everybody has their own idea of what something is, and if it's not theirs, it's just not as important. So try not to be too wordy and things like that. Use this if you can, but this is what you're going to leave behind with them. What else goes in that folder? Remember that purchase contract that you highlighted? I would put that in the folder too. What else goes in the folder? Yeah, and besides you're right. And besides the listing agreement, what else goes in that folder? The buyer's agreement, because you want them to help, to buy with you as well. Now, if you work with your Intercap lender, they want to partner with you, and it's not just about promotional stuff, but they will pay half of all this stuff because they will work with you as you help your client get ready to buy, sell property. And so on the other side of the folder, what is recommended that you put in there is that $1,000 loan approval guarantee. Remember that? Put that in there so they know that when they make an offer, I need to get approved for my loan. That actually helps them understand, I need to get that stuff up there now, right? Instead of waiting until the last minute. It also tells them how to start that loan application, shows them how to get the buyer's app, which we'll talk about. I mentioned that a little bit last week. And what else is in there? Basically some loan consideration things, but not again about promoting any person or any lender. It's about helping the client take the next step that they need to take, okay, to get what they need from it. So that's your folder that you have in there. And then here's what that bag looks like. It's a canvas bag. It's kind of a big bag. You put your full color logo on it, and then that folder goes inside. And when I show homes, I put snacks the first time I show homes. And I'll talk about that later on the captivating buyer side. So what I recommend that you do is you get this all ready now. Usually I have 5, but now I have just a couple of these sitting in my car at all times. So whenever I run into someone and they, if someone wants to look at a house, and I don't do a lot of that anymore, but I still have them there so that if I do, I'm prepared. It's all ready to go. It's printed out. It's ready to go. You should have those all ready to go. Okay. Let's see. What am I missing? Anything else that goes in there? The Rep C. I think that's everything that goes in there. And then I know I'm forgetting something that I wanted to share with you. Oh, at the end of that presentation, my goal is what again for the presentation? To get them to sign. So this is when I show them the folder, I give them this afterwards. You don't give them the folder when you're doing the presentation or before. Why not? They get distracted. They're going to be looking at that the whole time. You give something to someone, they're going to do that. You don't want them to. You want them to pay attention to you. You want them to see the examples of what you're doing. Then you'll give it to them, right? And then what you're basically going to say to them is that once you sign and I'm employed, like I said before, by you, then I can get to work. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create your listing report. And I'm going to give you the true value of your property. And so we can determine exactly what it should be listed at. Now, usually in most cases, they'll sign that for me. Every once in a while, they want to know what? What are you going to sell it for, right? That's like the big elephant in the room. What are you going to sell it for? I want you to believe this. As real estate agents, professional agents, when you throw out numbers and do this crazy little guess the amount of the value of my home game, you just basically told them that you did the tour so you could determine the true value, and you did that 45 minutes ago and you've been presented the whole time. When we throw out numbers based on a CMA, basically we're telling them we have no skill set to determine the value of your home other than some mechanism we use to provide some sort of baseline of value based on other homes that are for sale or in the current area. So letting them know that you don't get to work until you have a signed agreement is actually good for you, good for them to understand that. And if they have a qualm with it, just explain that to them. Just say, as soon as I get back with my team, we're going to put together that listing report, and it'll tell you what you probably should put the house up. I hope you appreciate the fact that I don't just throw out a number, right? That I'm not just giving you some random number that everybody. And this is where I throw agents under the bus again. Most agents will throw out a number, and they really don't know what that's going to be, because what's the true value of a property? What someone's willing to pay for it. And so I'm going to take the time to really understand that, and I don't want you walking away from easy money, right? So I'm going to have some recommendations. So sometimes I'll bring an example of a listing report, but that's only with the really hard cases. Like they really get stuck. Some people will. I got to know what you're going to sell my house for because that's how I compare you to other agents, which is ridiculous. If you explain it well, they'll get that out of their head hopefully pretty quick. But let me show you what a listing report looks like. And this is also in the book as well, and you can get a copy of it. It's just a Word document. Oh, there it is. It's a 4 to 5 page report. And what this is, and you give it to them after the signed agreement, like a few days or a week after, because you're going to take the pictures you took and you're going to put that into this document. The listing report is to show them what the value of their house should be sold for and what they should do to get it ready to sell. Now, of course, you're going to consider their situation with this. Don't just go, for all the things that they could possibly do or whatever, and it's going to take a whole lot of time and money to do it, but get a sense from them of what they're thinking, and then you're going to give them a recommendation that's based on, you can see here, recommended listing price. How many of you give a low, mid, and high value anyway, right? But what I'm doing, which is different, which I love about this, is that when I give them recommendations about what they can do to maximize their value, basically I'm telling them, if you want this high value, you need to do these things, right? And then that's convinced them now. It puts exactly, because now I'm not saying, we want to get that high value. You want the high value. Most agents are playing this little game like, well, let's put it on the market for the high price because that's what you want. And then if it doesn't get an offer, then we'll start reducing the price, and we have this little game we play, even with the listing itself, and it shouldn't be that way. So the way I put my listing report together is, it says listing report. Again, everything has a name that you offer. It distinguishes you from other real estate agents. So here's the street address. I put a picture of the outside of the house. It says listing suggestions there. I always put first the values, the things that are going to be good selling points of that property. I always start with the positive, right? I'll say, this is a Craftsman home. It's in Saratoga Springs. I might I won't necessarily put all the bedrooms and stuff like that. I'll send you a copy of it. But close to the lake, kind of some of these selling points, right, that are there. And then I have this curb appeal one. I don't put every single picture, and even on the interior, but I put the main ones. I put the selling points, of that area, that space. And then in bullets, guess what those are? Recommendations, right? So like on the outside of the home, it'll say power wash the house, green up the grass, things like that, or the things that are that I'll teach you next week. So next week you'll learn about what those things are. So I put those in there, and then when I tell them here's your low, mid, and high, then I give them the exact price of everything that I recommend that they do. Like with this house, it was $3,100, right? But it was things like power wash the outside of the house. Staging was the most expensive part of this for this property. They were going to live in it, but there's a lot of furniture that was mismatched and it wasn't quite, it wasn't the best kind of furniture. So I was teaching them as I go and give them the listing report that they're going to have a lot of their stuff is going to be taken out, and we might bring in a few things. But I'll teach you about that next week, right? But this listing report gives them this sense that now I've taken the time to really understand the true value of their property. Okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. This works. It really does work. Giving people a visual representation of your valued services that they can see and touch and feel and understand, especially when you put those goggles on, you'll get them to be excited about what you're offering for your price instead of being concerned about it. And I can't remember the last person that got cut up on the 3% after I give this kind of presentation. I can't even remember. Right? And then having other agents that I coach come back and say, yeah, I literally, they didn't even mention it. I've had people actually ask me during these presentations, how much more is this going to cost me? You're going to do this 3D rendering of my home. How much is that going to cost me? Don't worry, you don't have to pay for that, right? Really? You're going to do that? Yeah. And the advertising, I do all that. What I have you do is get the house ready to sell. And I'll come back with the listing report to let you know what those recommendations are. Okay? And it works. So, besides the fact that it's like steaming hot in here. Yeah, it's like, is it hot to you? Because I don't know, my hot air that I'm blowing out here. But any ideas, questions, thoughts about what you learned here today? Yes?
So like the goggles, I get, that when you're showing them and it's impressive to them, but how many other agents, I saw very few hands in here of people that use those. So it's like, do you want other people on the other side to see that? So is there...
Or just like educating buyers how to use that.
Yeah.
Because really
So
it's
this,
for the buyer at home.
Yeah, this is a good question. So I do have that. So this is the cool thing about those 3D tours. You can look at those 3D tours on a computer. You can look at them on a tablet where you can use you can scroll through. Have you ever seen it on a phone? It's really cool on a phone. You actually tap on the phone to walk through. So you tap, move, tap, just like people. It's very intuitive, right? How many people on the other end are actually going to use the goggles? I could care less. Because what I just did is what? Wowed the heck out of them, right? They did. Now, some people that have those and know about them, how many people have Oculus? You know how much money Meta has has invested in that? A lot of people have. And if that's available to them, they click on that link and they know about it. People that have those goggles know what they can do. So I don't know how many use it. I really don't care. Because what I care about is that I just impress that seller beyond what any other agent's going to do. I'm not going to charge them more money for it. Oh, you're only going to charge me 3%? Yeah, that's all I'm going to charge you, right? You do still get that, okay? Yeah. Actually, I've charged more before with other things, but yes.
So I know that you don't like to talk about price like up front, but I know that a lot of times even before going into a home, they're going to say, yeah, we're looking at this price, and you know that you're doing the research before even walking into the home, even though you don't want to give it to them, but you kind of have an idea.
Yeah.
What if they're just like so far off the spectrum? Like what do you do?
But see, that's my goal is not to, well, again, if they're so far off and I don't feel comfortable working with them, then I might say, yeah, I may not be your agent. So you have to make the decision just like they do. Now, what I always tell them in a presentation is that my job is to get the most money you can get for your home, right? I'm not promising them or committing to any number. And you need to be very careful not to do that. You do not want to commit to any number ever because you can't really commit to that number. I haven't finished here. I'm just kidding. So let me give you your homework just before all these people are leaving. Yeah. So what I want to see is you've read those chapters, you got your presentation materials ready. If you need this, if you get a total expert account from your loan officer, they will get you set up with all of these handout sheets. You can order the canvas bag. Do it now and don't wait until you don't have it. Download the PowerPoint presentation, put your picture on it, do the updates to it so that it makes it your own. Practice it, put it on your tablet. What is your tablet going to need if you need to show this website and other stuff on it? Internet access. Do you know how to put use your phone for a hotspot? Yeah. Make sure you practice in doing that. Don't wait until the last minute to do that. So whoever comes next week, and there's not as many now because we had some that left. As soon as I start to, it's like being a high school teacher. As soon as you start to wrap up, like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done. Anybody that can come to me with what they're going to, do their presentation on, their display. Now, you can print out those sheets. You might not have the folder ready yet or the canvas bag. But if you can get all that presented and you bring it next week, I'm going to give a $50 gift card to the person that does it, or if there's more than one, we might have to do a little drawing. But it'll be good for you to have that already. So make that an incentive. Read those 3 chapters. Get your presentation materials ready. And believe that you have not only the skill set, but the offering to merit all day long 3% and get people excited about it. This is a time to get people excited about working with a real estate agent beyond the transaction. And it's ripe out there for the taking. People need and want that kind of help. And it impresses them and they get excited about it. I use this when I sell my properties, and I am very involved in this kind of stuff. I would never sell a property without doing this to it. So give it to your clients that aren't seeing it. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but of all the people that were in this room, I bet there's only a few of you that have actually done this all together like this, right? So now start putting this all together, and you will find that your business will grow. It'll be a snowball effect. We're not saying anything about the weather, but it will literally continue to build and build on itself, because not only are you going to impress the people that you're trying to help, but everybody else that sees it, the neighbors that see it, your people in your SOI that see it, the people that want to sell later on that see it, your family that says, I didn't know you could do this, are going to see it, are going to impress them enough that you're no longer being chosen because of an association. You're being chosen because of value. So have a wonderful day, and you can now leave, and I will see you next week with the staging and flipping class. Okay? Thank you.
So this might seem silly, but just our goal is to get that listing agreement signed right there on the spot.